And here are some other stories making headlines this week. U.S. Treasury Secretary Jack Lew is in Detroit. A new wrinkle in the grand bargain, plus still more fighting over the EAA in Lansing. I want to start with the wrinkle in the grand bargain. All of a sudden last week, Jay Spolger came out and said, well, I think the union should be kicking in to the grand bargain. And that kind of threw everybody for a loop when we had gotten pretty darn close.
But he makes a good case for it. I mean, everybody else, every other stakeholder is there kicking in. These unions have reserve funds that they could use to put some stake in the game. They could use that money to save these pensions, bolster these pensions, instead of putting it into Democratic political.
But will that happen?
Coffers.
No. It's not going to happen, and he knows it's not going to happen. The governor knows it's not going to happen. Randy Richardville knows it's not going to happen.
Then why are we talking about it?
Unbelievable political posturing by a guy.
How committed he is to
Wait a minute.
He can hold up the deal.
Political posturing by a guy, what?
A guy who is class exhibit A for that kind of stuff in this state. This is one of the worst speakers we've had in modern Michigan political history, and you know, he's clownish this way. This is one of the worst things he's done, and it won't accomplish anything.
Illegitimate request. They're a stakeholder too,
we'll see.
And they should. It is their members. It was in many ways their poor choices and decision making that.
Okay, yeah, but is it a bad request to all of a sudden bring it in on Friday after it has been no part of the grand bargain the entire time?
The timing's a little suspect, but the request itself is not illegitimate.
Can't be a little pregnant. Can't be a little politically suspect.
It's a legitimate point.
All right. Well, they'll start talking about it. Let's take a look at the EAA. They're still talking about the EAA in Lansing. This is the second spring that we've gone through in trying to get the EAA codified. That is the hope for the failing schools. Why does the argument seem to be so hard here? You have two sides that are very much fighting this out, and it doesn't feel like that we're reaching any kind of resolution here.
We have two sides fighting again. Over turf, over adult issue, so rather than fighting about what's best for the kids of Detroit. And when we talk about the conversation we had before about the University of Michigan and the number of qualified applicants to colleges, this is where it starts. Other states are doing better than we are on adopting reforms and sticking to them and committing to them and pushing them through, and we're still fighting here. We got the Democratic gubernatorial candidate, Mark Schauer, out here, you know, taking a Bill de Blasio stance against charter schools and against reform in Michigan. We're stepping backwards all the time while other states are pushing forward.
Is the EAA working though, Stephen?
It's not working yet. I mean, and I think you got to give it more time. That's my opinion. 3 years. You got to give any sort of reform movement in schools 3 years to take root and show results. The critics are out ahead of themselves, but they were out ahead of themselves from the beginning. They just don't like the idea. I think everyone's got to take a deep breath and say, let's look at this qualitatively and substantively over time and figure out what parts of it work, what parts of it don't, and then keep moving forward and not argue about whether we want to go back or not.
Who's responsible for that? Who's responsible for that kind of breakdown so you can have that conversation
Well,
then?
the state is ultimately responsible for making sure that happens, and the people who are managing EAA are doing that. I mean, I feel like they are working a system and they are measuring it. It's not moving as fast as I would like to see it, or a lot of people would like to see it, and so we need to figure out what other things can we do to move faster. But I think the argument can't be about let's go back to the way it was, because these were the worst schools in the worst system in the state for decades.
But that's where the teachers' unions are stuck in this state, still longing for that past when they controlled everything, when nobody did anything without their permission.
Lots of people who want to go back.
It's a lot of the education establishment that are still wed to the status quo, even though it's failed generations.
Last 40 seconds that we have left, U.S. Treasury Secretary's in town. When you hear Treasury Secretary, everyone maybe thinks that they're coming wherever the money, right? Like, what kind of money could they be bringing? What is the signal when Washington sends someone like this to the state of Michigan?
It's an election year in a key state.
Oh, Nolan.
Uncle Sugar spreading it around. I wonder if they're going to be there next year and the year after and the year after that. I don't think Detroit or Michigan can get dependent on this sort of federal mainlining of money.
But
10
they have
second
shown,
last word.
they've shown a very strong commitment to Detroit over the last 6 to 8 months. The federal government has, the White House in particular. I think they are committed to helping us spend our federal money better and maximize opportunities to get more.
And
So.
some creative funding. All right, and that is going to do it for MiWeek. Check us out at Facebook and Twitter, and as always, MiWeek.org. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week. Take care.